Happy Wednesday. Let's talk about our content calendar. When you're putting together your content calendar, it helps to make sure that you know what your deadlines are. Again, so simple and obvious, but that's one of the major things that throws me off. If I ever make a mistake on my content scheduling, it's because I misinterpreted how long something was going to take, or I have failed to understand one of my deadlines. As an example, when you're setting a book for early release announcement on Amazon, you're setting up for one of the exclusive programs for Amazon, and you're doing a pre-release of pre-sales on your book, sometimes that takes time. You have to have your work finished, and your entire book needs to be sitting in escrow with Amazon for quite a while in order for you to continue to qualify for the program. If you release book 1 and you plan to release book 2 like 2 months later, you damn well better have book number 2 done the month that your first book releases. You need to do that because you need to set the book up. You need to set it, have all your pieces and parts, your final draft is in, your cover is in, and everything has to be there and loaded and ready to release as soon as you do the pre-release announcements. That's pretty strict. You really need to figure out what you're doing before you go and mess that up. Because if you miss a pre-release, I believe you're banned from that pre-release option for Kindle and Amazon, so it's a big deal. One of the issues I'm dealing with right now is that I need to figure out how to write something that I don't understand. I have to learn a new skill set so that I can talk intelligently about it in the book. That's throwing me behind on my production because I knew I wanted to do it, but I failed to interpret how long it would take me to learn and understand the skills associated with weaving cloth. While I understand it, I'm still struggling to visualize putting it together. I'm getting there, but I need to watch some more people doing it, that kind of thing. There's another pitfall that you might run into where you have a good view on what you need to do, but you don't have it fully set into your head. Physically on the content calendar, you're gonna have a deadline. You're gonna give yourself a deadline, somebody else is gonna give you a deadline. This is just like planning a trip. I use this analogy a lot because when you're storytelling, if you don't know where you're going, you're not going to get there. You're just going to wander around your outline, not going to get anywhere with your story. It's the same thing as planning a trip to the grocery store. If you know that the grocery store trip is going to take 35 to 45 minutes and it's a 5-minute trip there and it's a 5-minute trip back, that means that you're going to have to schedule at least 55 minutes to an hour for that simple grocery store trip, because 5 minutes there, 35 to 45 minutes working, 5 minutes back, plus lights or whatever goes wrong. Your easy math is that you pad it and you say, okay, 60 minutes for a grocery store trip, as an example. So I know that if I need to be home by 3 o'clock, if I need to get groceries before I go for whatever next event at the house is, that means that I need to be out the door to the store because I've backward planned that this is my deadline, I need to be there by. Backward plan. It's the same as planning a trip. It's the same stuff. You're just working backwards on your goals. You're working backwards on your story, on your production. I find this much easier to maintain with non-fiction. When I'm doing non-fiction, when I'm doing interviews, when I'm doing biographies, setting up the production calendar for that is much easier because it's just facts, done. I know at that point that I can turn around and I can take my production schedule and I can say, okay, I need to interpret or edit this many thousands of words in a day and I'm done. I need to produce this cover art in this afternoon and I'm done. I need to produce back blurb for the book and I'm done. I got specific tasks and I can just knock them off the list. It's more complicated with the storytelling because you're creating from whole cloth. You're not pulling existing content. You're not pulling lessons learned where you're a subject matter expert. But it gets a little bit fuzzy when you get into the fiction, fantasy, science fiction kind of stuff. For me, at least. Other people may be fine. If you devote a period of time to put together your outline, and then you turn around and you say, I have a target length of 135 to 150,000 words because you're writing a full-length book. If you know that your writing goal for the day is 2,000 words, you take that average of 140,000 words and then divide it by 2,000. How many days is it going to take you? 2 months easily, because you may have some days where you do some more, but you'll take the length that you're targeting, divide by your word count, When you divide by your word count, you get how many days it's going to take you to produce that work. And then what you do is that number of days, you just put in the grind. If you have a release date of January 1st, you backward plan 30 days of prep time, cover art, and all that kind of fancy stuff like that. You can do cover art fairly quickly if you're doing a nonfiction book. If you're working with a cover artist to draw fantasy or science fiction cover, it could take a lot longer to get that put together, because artists, just be aware that may be one of the first things that you start, is that you order the cover art early on, and you're really going to have to know what your vision is when you do that, because then you're committing real money. Your bargain basement cover art, illustrated cover art that's worth a damn, is probably going to run you $400 to $500 to start, and then depending on the quality of the artist, 4 figures is not unlikely. So you got to be careful with that kind of stuff. You got to make sure that you have a clearly expressed vision, because you don't want to go back over that, especially when your release date is coming and you don't have cover art for the book and you've dropped a bunch of money on an artist who's not produced the work. That can be a major issue, especially if you're set for a pre-release date and you're under a hard deadline. So it's something to keep in mind. You want as much fluff time on your cover art as possible. That's a long pole in the tent that you're not going to be able to make up. You don't control the output. If you have a release date of January 1st and you know it's going to take you a month of mucking about to get your scheduling and your publishing and your pre-release and all the cover art and cover back, all that kind of stuff pulled together, that means that this 1st of December you need to have your manuscript done and into editing for your December and polishing and through like mid-December and putting that through your release. When you're in that situation, you're going to want to make sure that you have 60 days before that set and planned for your production of words, however many days you need backwards. So that becomes November, October 1st. You'd basically need to start working if you have a 60-day production calendar for the actual draft. And then there's the editing process, which for me, I explained how I worked that yesterday. So for me, editing doesn't typically take very long. I have my basically 4 pieces of editing that I do. I do the in-process editing on a daily basis to make sure that I'm in the right headspace for the story. I'll do the rough editing to make sure that all the pieces and parts are there. I'll do the final edit, the finish editing, where I'm correcting grammar and stuff, and then I'll drop it into a computer and I'll listen to a playback. Those are the basis of the 4 editing processes that I'll go through. That doesn't typically take me very long because I've been doing it for so long. That needs to get calculated in, and you can be editing your final draft while somebody else is working on something. If you've commissioned a simple cover, like a monochromatic cover or something like that, looks really, really fancy, you can get a solid, memorable cover that's an easy thumbnail for Amazon. You can get that in place relatively quickly on Fiverr or whatever. That's not a terribly difficult process. When you put that simple cover in place, you can be editing concurrently while you're producing a simple cover, if you're commissioning that kind of stuff. If you have all of your pieces and parts from your list and you're going through your checklist of stuff to do, you can pretty quickly and easily schedule and calendar that stuff out so that you know where you need to be on what day. That'll give you a structured deal, and you can set that to a calendar. Once you've set things to the calendar, it's much easier to visualize it. If I have lines through days on my calendar and I know that on such and such a day I need to get this much done, at that point you just log your words. When you log your words per day, you can see your production per day. That brings accountability to the system. And then you've got 60 days of production for however long you want your book to be. You do 60 blocks, and then you put in word goal, words produced, and now you've got accountability baked into your system for your content calendar. Hope that helps. I'm exhausted, beat up, so apologize for the low energy. Have a great day.